Well, good morning, brothers and sisters of the hook. This is some underwater video footage from dropping the cams down. I want to call this video Better Than an Aquarium number 19 because I've got 18 before this from the last 8 years that I have made from underwater cams. And here I'm going into color correction because the water turns greener and greener and greener the deeper it gets. And it gets hard to see the fish on the very bottom if I didn't do any color correcting at all. Now coming up first here is a mangrove snapper up above all these culverts. You see those culverts right there? Mangrove snapper, colorful reef fish, lots of grunts. There's a mangrove. And if you look carefully by that pipe right there, you'll see a lionfish. And off to the left, coming kind of into view in the middle, is a gag grouper. If you keep your eye on it, you'll see him. There's a nice dark colored mangrove and a lighter colored mangrove. See that gag in the background there? Yeah. Nice mangrove. There's a mangrove with a racing stripe. Smaller mangroves. Smaller, larger. There's a lane snapper. No, that's not a lane. That's a spot-tail pinfish. There's the lane snapper. Right in the middle there. That gag grouper still going over that pipe in the background. And there's a triggerfish on the top. Another nice big mangrove. And some of these fish that are in the background, look at that. Look at that nice big gag grouper. Oh man. I probably had hooked into this guy because you see some of the scales look like they're missing. Looks like he's been in a battle. And that could have been one that I hooked and he broke off because it looks like he got some battle scars on him there. Another triggerfish. A lane snapper cruising along the bottom. Lots and lots of bait fish here. There's a sheep's head. For some reason we didn't get a single bite on a sheep's head, didn't catch a sheep's head, but they're down there. Now this is just a couple weeks old, or a couple days old actually, video from a trip that we made. It's about 18, 19 miles out. And the water on top was just beautiful, clear. But the bottom, like 6, 7, 10 feet, it started to get really cloudy. Nice mangrove. Two more mangroves. Trigger. Big mangrove in the background, way in the background there. And what we're getting ready to see right here is another great big Gag grouper, see him there? Going over the pipe. I'm going to change my mind on this next fish, that big fish right there. I think that's a Cubera snapper. You let me know what you think. And getting ready to come into the picture right there is a porgy. Just swam right by. We use these grunts a lot for, there's another, what is that? That's another grouper right there. That makes about 4 now that I've seen in just this little short time. Look at him. Look at him. There he goes. But we use these grunts whole and also cut up to catch mangroves and snapper and hopefully the occasional gag grouper. Now keep in mind this is full action. I haven't slowed any of this video down, but this is just one small section and a very short amount of time that we're seeing all of these fish, just a small section of the reef that's out there, and just look at all the life that's just in this one view. And as you can tell, that lionfish in the middle there, he's the only one that's hardly moving at all. He's just sitting still, waiting for a victim to come along that he can gobble up. Now, if there's one thing that I've noticed from these underwater videos, when the cams are pointing towards the structure, you see far more mangrove snappers than you do red snappers. See, there's 2 mangroves right there. You just saw another one. There's a red snapper with a mangrove behind him there. But when the cams are pointing away from the structure, you see far more red snapper. And right in the background, almost in the middle, you don't know if you saw it or not, was another gag grouper. He's just in the darkness there. That pipe is, that great big pipe that's sticking up and down. I see him looking at the cams right now, actually. He's way back there, right in the middle of that big dark area. He looks to be moving a little bit. He's right behind that red snapper there. I don't see him now. He must have dropped down in behind that pipe. He's right about where that sheep's head was. But, yeah, there's all kinds of life all around this artificial reef. It's just beautiful out there. Now I have a 150-pound braided line attached to the top of the cam's platform, and it's on a fishing pole that's up on the deck. And as the boat is rising and falling in the waves, it has a tendency to pull on that braided line. And if the waves are big enough and if the boat is a little off center, it'll pick the cams up and drop them down, and it gets kind of rocky, rocking up and down. And that's some of the cam movement that you'll see every just occasionally. Just can't help it. And coming up here in just a second is something that I haven't seen in quite a while, a flounder. I'd say it's a medium-sized flounder, not very big. We're not quite halfway through this video, so if you want to pause and go get yourself a Coke or a Diet Coke or a coffee, feel free to go. But in a little bit, I'm going to switch cam directions. I'm not sure if it's going to be the same reef or if it's another reef, but I've added some other video. But they're all recent, and I'll let you know when I switch to another reef or another angle. Now get ready, because in the center to the right, you'll see another gag grouper. See in there? Just disappeared. That's a nice size one too. Okay, I've just switched to another cam pointing the other direction at the same spot. It's just pointing in another direction. And you can tell the wave action actually knocked my camera platform over. Boom. Now it came to rest looking this way. Come on, get back down there. And we got current too, so that doesn't help. There we go. I hope it's settled down now. Look at all that life. Isn't that incredible? And here you start to see more red snapper because it's pointing a little bit away from the structure. And I think that's a red snapper to the left there. Tail showing. That's a triggerfish. Hello, trigger. Hogging the camera. Two of them. Also, keep in mind that we are constantly fishing at the same time, and our lines are down there. You just can't see them. Whenever you see a whole bunch of these grunts heading all in one direction all at the same time, somehow they know that our bait is down there, and that's where everybody's heading when they're all heading in one direction at the same time. Coming into view at the bottom of your screen is a porgy, a white-boned porgy. There he is. Not a very big one. He's gone. Can you imagine if they were to put hundreds and hundreds of more of these reefs out there, up and down the coast of the Carolinas and Florida and Georgia and all around the Gulf, that if they were to put hundreds more reefs, there would be so many fish that they wouldn't have to have seasons for anything. Every time you go out, you'd be catching your limit because there'd just be so many fish out there. Okay, you see how they're all going in one direction? That's because we've thrown out a bait and they've heard it and are all heading for it, including that red snapper that you just saw and that Almaco jack. And a lot of those fish that you see up above, well off the bottom, up high, are mangrove snapper. They're up in the column. And here comes Mr. Lane Snapper. And one of us, either John or I, just threw some bait in and it's going down. And here they all go. They're heading in one direction. Somehow they all get the message and everybody heads towards the bait. Dinner time. Here comes a mangrove with a racing stripe on him. Get ready. Here he comes. Right there. Now keep in mind also that this is after 10:30, maybe 11 o'clock, and the main part of the activity, the feeding of these fish, is past. Usually we see about 10:30 or so is when everything starts to die off and these fish all head for the bedroom to take a siesta or something. But the bite just kind of dies off. About noontime, it's hard to catch anything. Keep your eye a little bit to the right of that pipe there that's to the left, and you'll see a gag grouper. See him there? Just his tail was showing, and he comes back in just a second, turns around. Here he's turning around. Just below that red snapper there's a gag grouper just disappearing. Isn't that cool? Woo! Just saw that. And I have no idea what all of these fish are that are coming into the view right now. Might be pigfish, don't know. They're schooling fish, so I don't know what they are. And that one fish you see in the bottom that's just swimming towards the cam now, that's yellowish colored, that's a pork fish. They used to be a protected species, but I think it's been taken off the protected reef species list because they are nasty, nasty to eat. I've eaten one, and a buddy of mine ate one, and we will never eat another one. I'm going to be going out on this coming Monday. It's going to be June 11, I believe it is, that I'll be taking my second cousin Kyle out, and we're going to try to get to a natural area a little bit further out, and I'll drop the cams down, and it should be clearer on the bottom, so we can even see further. This view is probably 25 to 30 feet out at the most that you can see anything at all. So it's a pretty small area that you can see. You see all the fish gathering in one spot there? They're attacking a bait, probably a sardine that I dropped down. That's why sardines don't last very long. All those little fish get it before the big fish can get there. All right, moved off to another reef and getting ready to drop the cams down to a closer in reef, only about 12 or so miles out. Nice blue water there on top, isn't it? Nice and clear, beautiful. The deeper you get, the greener it gets. I guess you saw Mr. Shark just then. Look at all them red snapper. Big red snapper. And lots of grunts for them to eat. There's a lane snapper. There's another lane snapper. And another lane snapper. Sheep's head in the background. There just seem to be more lanes closer in at the closer in reefs than there are at the distant reefs. And I think the cams are actually sitting on on top of a culvert here. That's why it's kind of a high angle and rocking back and forth because it was wavier. It was more waves on the surface when we were in closer. And the current was a little stronger too. Lane snappers, lane snappers. Now keep in mind also, folks, that this is one of the close-in reefs. Another lane. And all these fish are getting ready to head off to eat, gobble up some of our bait. You'll see them all dash off in one direction here in just a second. There's a nice big mangrove. But this is a close-in reef. Look at the size of these mangroves. And that pipe that you see with the hole pointing towards the camera, a little bit up to the center and to the right, out of that hole is going to come the biggest mangrove I have ever seen in just a little bit. You'll see it. Even though the camera's kind of bouncing a little bit, you'll see them pretty clearly. Real good picture of a porkfish there, and I believe those are blue runners. Those jacks that you see. Don't know why those porkfish, they almost shine like they're glowing yellow. Fluorescent yellow. It's going to be a little while before that great big mangrove snapper comes out of that pipe, but just be ready. As I'm sure you could tell, I've slowed the speed down of the cams down to 50% so that you can see everything's moving a lot slower, because the cams are bouncing a little bit from the wave action above. But get ready, because here comes that great big mangrove. There he is. He's a big boy. Compared to the size of that pipe, you can tell he's a monster. There he goes. One of these days I'm hoping to hook into him. And there goes Mr. Shark again. And that's just about going to wrap up this video. Better than an aquarium. Number 19. Big old red snapper, big old mangrove snapper. That's a good way to end it. And praise the Lord for all of your incredible creation.